बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन गजगणरंजन यशोदानंदन गजगणरंजन यशोदानंदन व्रजजनरंजन यशोदानंदन गजगणरंजन यमुना तीरावनचारि यमुना तीरावनचारि जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय निताय सच्चिदानंद निताय सच्चिदानंद निताय सच्चिदानंद गौर हरि जय निताय सच्चिदानंद निताय सच्चिदानंद निताय सच्चिदानंद गौर हरि जय जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल जय गौर प्रेमानंदे। We will start with the invocation prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadagalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगल्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namah. So we are reading Canto 1, Chapter 8, verse 27, Queen Kunti's prayers. So I will chant the verse 3 times and then devotees can chant. So can I share my screen, Prabhu?
Yes, you can share the screen.
Okay. Yeah, so you can see the verse. Can you see the verse?
Yes, we can see the verse.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, verse 27. Namo Kinchana Vittaya Nivritta Gunavrittaye Atma Ramaya Shantaya Kaivalyapataye Namah. Namo Kinchana Vittaya Nivritta Gunavrittaye Atma Ramaya Shantaya Kaivalyapataye Namah. Namo Kinchana Vittaya Nivritta Gunavrittaye Atma Ramaya Shantaya Kaivalyapataye Namah. Anybody would like to chant?
Namo Kinchanna Vittaya Nivritta Gunavrittaye Atma Ramaya Shantaya Kaivalyapataye Namaha.
Anyone else?
I'll try.
Yes, please.
Namo Kinchana Vittaya Nirvrita Gunavirtaye Atmaramaya Santaya Kaivalya Pataye Namaha.
Anybody else?
Namo Kanchana Vitaya Nivritta Gunavrittaye Atmaramaya Shantaya Kaivalya Pataye Namaha.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu, for chanting. So this is another wonderful verse from prayers of Mother Kunti Devi. I will read the word by word. Namah, all obeisances unto you. Akinchana Vittaya, unto the property of the materially impoverished. Nivritta, completely transcendental to the actions of the material modes. Guna, material modes. Vrittaye, affection. Atma Aramaya, one who is self-satisfied. Shantaya, the most gentle. Kaivalya Pataye, unto the master of the monists. Namah, bowing down. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. My obeisances are unto you, who are the property of the materially impoverished. You have nothing to do with the actions and reactions of the material modes of nature. You are self-satisfied, and therefore you are the most gentle and are the master of the monists. Purport. A living being is finished as soon as there is nothing to possess. Therefore, a living being cannot be, in the real sense of the term, a renouncer. A living being renounces something for gaining something more valuable. A student sacrifices his childish proclivities to gain better education. A servant gives up his job for a better job. Similarly, a devotee renounces the material world not for nothing, but for something tangible in spiritual value. Srila Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami and others gave up their worldly pomp and prosperity for the sake of the service of the Lord. They were big men in the worldly sense. The Goswamis were ministers in the government service of Bengal. And Srila Raghunath Das Goswami was the son of a big zamindar of his time. But they left everything to gain something superior to what they previously possessed. The devotees are generally without material prosperity, but they have a very secret treasure house in the lotus feet of the Lord. There is a nice story about Srila Sanatana Goswami. He had a touchstone, and this stone was left in a pile of refuse. A needy man took it, but later on wondered why the valuable stone was kept in such a neglected place. He therefore asked Sanatana for the most valuable thing, and then he was given the holy name of the Lord. Akinchana means one who has nothing to give materially. A factual devotee or Mahatma does not give anything material to anyone because he has already left all material assets. He can, however, deliver the supreme asset, namely the personality of Godhead, because he is the only property of a factual devotee. The touchstone of Sanatana Goswami, which was thrown in the rubbish, was not the property of the Goswami. Otherwise, it would not have been kept in such a place. This specific example is given for the neophyte devotees just to convince them that material hankerings and spiritual advancement go ill together. Unless one is able to see everything as spiritual in relation with the Supreme Lord, one must always distinguish between spirit and matter. A spiritual master like Srila Sanatana Goswami, although personally able to see everything as spiritual, set this example for us only because we have no spiritual vision. Advancement of material vision or material civilization is a great stumbling block for spiritual advancement. Such material advancement entangles the living being in the bondage of a material body, followed by all sorts of material miseries. Such material advancement is called anartha, or things not wanted. Actually, this is so. In the present context of material advancement, one uses lipstick at a cost of 50 cents, and there are so many unwanted things which are all products of the material conception of life. By diverting attention to so many unwanted things, human energy is spoiled without achievement of spiritual realization, the prime necessity of human life. The attempt to reach the moon is another example of spoiling energy because even if the moon is reached, the problems of life will not be solved. The devotees of the Lord are called akinchanas because they have practically no material assets. Such material assets are all products of the three modes of material nature. They spoil spiritual energy, and thus the less we possess such products of material nature, the more we have a good chance for spiritual progress. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no direct connection with material activities. All his acts and deeds, which are exhibited even in this material world, are spiritual and without affection for the modes of material nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that all his acts, even if his appearance and disappearance in and out of the material world, are transcendental. And one who knows this perfectly shall not take his birth again in this material world, but will go back to Godhead. Janma karma cha me divyam, that famous verse describes this. Continuing, the material disease is due to hankering after loading it over material nature. This hankering is due to an interaction of the three modes of nature, and neither the Lord nor the devotees have attachment for such false enjoyment. Therefore, the Lord and the devotees are called Nivritta Guna Vritti. The perfect Nivritta Guna Vritti is the Supreme Lord because he never becomes attracted by the modes of material nature, whereas the living beings have such a tendency. Some of them are entrapped by the illusory attraction of material nature. The last paragraph. Because the Lord is the property of the devotees, and the devotees are the property of the Lord reciprocally, the devotees are certainly transcendental to the modes of material nature. That is a natural conclusion. Such unalloyed devotees are distinct from the mixed devotees who approach the Lord for mitigation of miseries and poverty, or because of inquisitiveness and speculation. The unalloyed devotees and the Lord are transcendently attached to one another. For others, the Lord has nothing to reciprocate, and therefore he is called Atma Rama, self-satisfied. Self-satisfied as he is the master of all monists who seek to merge into the existence of the Lord. Such monists merge within the personal effulgence of the Lord called the Brahma Jyoti, but the devotees enter into the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, which are never to be misunderstood as material. The long purport and several nice insights are here, very important instructions are here. So please give your blessings and prayers so that I can at least touch upon some of these instructions within my capacity and small understanding. So I will read the translation quickly once again. My obeisances are unto you, who are the property of the materially impoverished. You have nothing to do with the actions and reactions of the material modes of nature. You are self-satisfied, and therefore you are the most gentle and are master of the monists. So here, the previous verse, the word akinchana gocharam was used. Similarly, here also Mother Kunti Devi is continuing this word, prayers with including this word akinchana vittaya. As we can see from the Sanskrit, akinchana vittaya means unto the property of the materially impoverished. The word property is very significant. If somebody has to possess a property, that's not so silly thing. But here, it's described that the materially impoverished people, not all, but specifically mentioning about the devotees who are 0% material attached. Such devotees, for such devotees, Krishna becomes their property by himself. So I will speak about some of the devotees mentioned in the verse itself. Srila Prabhupada mentioned about Shad Goswamis, especially 3 Goswamis, but we know all the Goswamis were completely detached from the materialistic world in some sense, even though they lived in this world to enliven and save all the conditioned souls from this material world. They were not attached, even though they had all the facilities and possibilities given by the will of Krishna to enjoy the material world. They were the ministers and of course Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis. Raghunath Das Goswami had a lot of wealth from his parents. They were ready to give that, but he left all those wealth also. And then other Goswamis also left everything and took shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the famous Shad Goswami Ashtaka, verse 4 is mentioned here by Srila Prabhupada. Tyaktva turnam ashesha mandalapati shrenim sada tuchhaval bhutva dina ganesha kau karunaya kaupina kantha sthirau gopi bhavarasamritabdhilahari kallolamagau muhur vande rupa sanatanau raghuyugau Shri Jiva Gopalakau. So in this verse, the first line describes Tyaktva Turnam Ashesha Mandalapati Shrenim. Tyaktva, they left everything. In the translation, it's described who kicked off all association of aristocracy as insignificant, tuchhavat. So they did not value, even for a little person, for all those money they had and position, etc. But they left everything by the mercy of Lord Mahaprabhu. By his permission, they left everything and took the position of an acharya and just accepted loin clothes, very little, minimal material possessions just to maintain. And then they started preaching worldwide in some sense. And they wrote so many books and they spent their whole life then onwards for the service of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna, and then did wonderful services, which is inconceivable for most of the worldly people. And of course, Srila Prabhupada followed their paths, and we are all supposed to be Rupanugas, following the footsteps of Rupa Goswami and the Shad Goswamis. But we are not supposed to imitate them by leaving everything and then trying to be an acharya or such exalted devotee. But we are supposed to follow their instructions. And then, even though they left everything and took shelter of Vrindavan and started their services in that way, but the instructions given to us by Rupa Goswami especially is the verse, very famous verses, Anasaktasya Vishayan Yatharham Upayunjita. The verse talked about Yukta Vairagyam, Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagyam Uchyate. So that means utilize everything in service to Krishna, not become a fake renouncer. The next verse talks about that. Prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhu vastina mumukshubhi parityago vairagyam phalgugatyate. So hari sambandhi vastuna, that means these material stuffs which are supposed to be offered to Hari, Lord Vishnu, Krishna, because of lack of knowledge, renouncing those. That is called fake renunciation. So Rupa Goswami's instruction to us is not to leave everything and then take up some so-called devotional service, and then still our mind will hanker about these material stuffs, etc. That is not the instruction to us. For us, don't get attached to the material things, but utilize the material things as much as possible in service to Krishna. Now there is a catch in this. That means we are allowed to use these material stuffs, and while we are getting entangled in those material stuffs, there is a tendency that we will utilize that in our own material sense enjoyment. So that is where we need proper guidance, regulation, mercy from Guru and Krishna, etc. So in the purport, Prabhupada mentioned about the nice story about Sanatana Goswami. He had a very peculiar jewel, the Chintamani, which can turn even the iron or other metals to gold, but he did not care for that. So he kept that somewhere else in a dustbin or some sort of pile of waste garbage. And then someone knew that he had this particular jewel, so he asked Sanatana Goswami and acquired that. But after that, he thought, why he's putting this in the garbage pile? Because he must have something which is more valuable. And then he came back and asked, and Sanatana Goswami asked him to leave this jewel, then he will give. And then finally he left that and he got the most valuable jewel, holy name of Krishna. So they all knew this secret treasure house. What is treasure? What is real wealth? So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions advancement of material vision or material civilization is a great stumbling block for spiritual advancement. Of course, this is in connection with to the modern world, where people are trying to find newer and newer methods of sense gratification. Right now, during this pandemic, due to the coronavirus, many of the many possibilities of sense gratification are shut off due to the spreading of virus. So people are trying to figure out newer and newer methods to enjoy their senses within these limitations. They are not, most of the people other than devotees, they are not learning from this experience, because the problem is trying to enjoy the senses without keeping God in the center. So we have this famous story from Mahabharata, where Duryodhana and Arjuna approached Krishna to ask for support for the war. And then I'm not going into the details, making it short. Duryodhana wanted Krishna's army, or Duryodhana wanted Krishna's energy in some sense, material energy. But Arjuna simply desired for Krishna, not his material energy or his army. And then at the end, Arjuna wins. And Duryodhana lost everything, including his life. That is the end of any materialistic person. So so-called material hankering and material achievements are not going to save us on a long term. That is the instruction. So we are asked, or we are instructed to practice how to utilize these material things. Now the technology is advancing so much, and the devotees are very intelligent, and they are finding different ways to use technology in Krishna's service and in service to the whole world by bringing everyone back to Krishna's lotus feet. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a wonderful section in Canto 10, almost towards the end of 10th Canto, chapter 88, which is titled as Lord Shiva Saved from Brikasura. So Maharaj Parikshit is asking Shukadeva Goswami a very wonderful question. So he's asking, Lord Vishnu is the source of all opulences. He has got all the opulences. He's the best of everything, of course. And Lord Shiva, at least his external behavior is in such a way that he doesn't have any material opulence. He doesn't have any nice clothing. He chose. And then his garland is a snake and things like that. He chose to live such a life. But the devotees of Lord Shiva, whoever prays to Lord Shiva, is getting many material opulences. They get to enjoy material opulences, but devotees of Lord Vishnu, who is the possessor of all material opulence, those devotees are devoid of any material opulences. They don't get to enjoy material opulences. Of course, they get liberation, but why there is a contradiction? The source of material opulence and his devotees are not getting anything, but Lord Shiva, who doesn't have any material opulence or doesn't possess any material opulence, his devotees are getting all the opulences. Why there is a contradiction? So Shukadeva Goswami describes the reason in this way. Lord Shiva, who also he's Sadashiva, he's not a material jiva, I mean, who is not a materially attached jiva like the conditioned souls. But he, for the service of Lord, he manifests as false ego in different varieties, and he manifests different forms in the material world, Rudras, etc. So those who are worshipping him in that manifestations, they will get those material opulences. But Lord Vishnu has a different strategy to his devotees. So Shukadeva Goswami doesn't give the answer directly, but he mentions that King Yudhishthira at the end of Ashwamedha Yajna asked the same question to Krishna. And Krishna gave the answer in this way. That's how Shukadeva Goswami starts, and he gives the answer in verses 8, 9, 10 especially. And the verse 8 is very important to us because Srila Prabhupada described this verse starting with Yasyaham Anugrinhami and in connection with his life also. So the verse 8 goes like this: Yasyaham Anugrinhami Harishye Tathanam Shanai Tato Dhanam Tyajantyasya Avajana Dukha Dukhitam. So the translation, the personality of God had said, so Krishna is speaking to Yudhishthira Maharaj, mentioning why Krishna is not giving unlimited opulence to his devotees, material opulence. If I especially favor someone, if Krishna favors someone, I gradually deprive him of his wealth. Then the relatives and friends of such a poverty-stricken man abandon him. In this way, he suffers one distress after another. And the verse 9, continuing the answer to Yudhishthira Maharaj, when he becomes frustrated in his attempts to make money and instead befriends my devotees, I bestow my special mercy upon him. So Krishna is, if Krishna is favoring someone, any of his devotee, he is gradually taking the wealth out of him. Then what happens? The person may try to get wealth again, but he will get frustrated because if Krishna controls something, if Krishna decides something, no one else can deny that. So then he slowly started coming to the devotees, getting devotee association. Then Krishna will show special mercy upon him. And the verse, 10th verse, next verse in that connection goes like this. A person who has thus become sober fully realizes the absolute as the highest truth, the most subtle and perfect manifestation of spirit, the transcendental existence without end. In this way, realizing that the supreme truth is the foundation of his own existence, he is freed from the cycle of material life. That way, this devotee gets the realization that Krishna is the absolute truth, and then he doesn't have anything to do with the material world, and he will be freed. So Krishna's intention is to purify a devotee. For that purpose, he prohibit giving material opulences to the devotees. Of course, if he feels that the devotee is able to utilize completely in his own, in Krishna's service, then he will provide also. We have many examples of that also. But this is why Krishna's devotees are usually poor and Lord Shiva's devotees are getting a lot of material opulences. So in the purport of verse 8, 1088.8, that famous verse, Yasyaham Anugrinhami, it's a very wonderful purport. If you get some time, you can read it. Within the purport, a couple of lines, Prabhupada mentions, Supreme Lord Vishnu is mercifully strict with all his dependents, not only with immature devotees struggling to become qualified. Even perfect saints like Prahlada, Dhruva, and Yudhishthira were subjected to great tribulations, all for their glorification. So of course, there is a difference between why Krishna is giving struggling to a neophyte like me, or perfect saints, pure devotees like Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, Yudhishthira Maharaj, Pandavas, Mother Kunti Devi, Srila Prabhupada, etc. For a conditioned soul, he gives struggling. If he is trying to approach Krishna sincerely, then he will give some struggle so that the person can get purified and completely devoid of material affection. Then he can approach Krishna. But for a pure devotee, they are already purified, completely pure. They don't have any tinge of material affection or affinity. But for them also, Krishna gives, struggling. That way no one can complain. Okay, you are giving struggling to this group, but not the other group. No, he's giving struggling to all the persons in the material world, whether they are conditioned souls or whether they have come to help Krishna in saving all the conditioned souls. So this is for their glorification. To glorify the devotees, pure devotees, he also gave tribulations to them. So we have many other examples. Draupadi also is a pure devotee, but she was trying to be disrobed, and even though it's a pastime, she was trying to take shelter of her husbands. They did not, or they could not help. Then she tried to take shelter of Bhishma Dev and Dronacharya, etc. They did not help either. Finally, she tried to take shelter of her own clothing, sari. That also did not help. Then she completely gave up all these material, so-called material shelters, and then took shelter of Krishna, and immediately Krishna saved. So Krishna is there. Krishna is watching and seeing where is our attention is going. Is it towards the material stuff or towards Krishna? As soon as we are turning towards Krishna, he is there to protect us. And then there are many other stories too. In another instance, in Vidura was, of course, before that, Duryodhana invited Krishna to have a meal at his house, but Krishna rejected that, knowing that Duryodhana's intention is not pure. He wanted something material, that's why he's inviting Krishna. But he simply went to Vidura's home, and he knew that, without even being invited by Vidura, he went to Vidura's home by knowing the heart of Vidura. And then we know the story. Vidura's wife was, she got bewildered. Suddenly Krishna is entering, and I don't have anything to serve him. So what should I do? So she tried to give the banana, but finally she gave the peels of the banana, throwing the banana away. And then Krishna accepted that because she was giving with love. So Krishna is looking for our love, not anything else. So we don't need to possess a lot of material stuffs to serve Krishna. But if we have been gifted with some material stuff, of course we should try to give them back to Krishna in whatever way we can. So the same purport 1088.8, the last paragraph is wonderfully written. This is a realization from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which was given to us by Srila Prabhupada in that same purport of his. So Chakravarti Thakur is objecting one of Krishna's intent of descending to the material world, which is paritranaya sadhunam, etc. Vinashaya cha dushkritam, etc. So he is coming here to save the devotees, paritranaya sadhunam. But why he is giving tribulations to the devotees instead of saving them? So they are getting going through a lot of tribulations already, and then he is descending, and then Chakravarti Thakur is asking, what fault would there be in God's incarnating for some other reason than to deliver saintly persons from suffering? So he himself is responding. Of course, they pose the questions which arise in other people's minds. So they are posing the question and answering that. So he is answering like this: yes, my dear brother, this makes good sense, but you are not expert in understanding spiritual moods. That's why if somebody is complaining that why Krishna is giving tribulations to his own devotees, because we don't understand the spiritual moods. So Chakravarti Thakur continues, please listen. It is at night that the sunrise becomes attractive. During the hot summer, that cold water gives comfort. And during the cold winter months, that warm water is pleasing. So this is the contrast. That is when we can enjoy the most with anything in this world also, right? And lamplight appears attractive in darkness. The full sun, if somebody is switching on the light, we don't even see the light sometimes. So there is no appreciation of that light. But if it is darkness, of course, the lamp has much more value. Not in the glaring light of day. And when one is distressed by hunger, food tastes especially good. Of course, if we are not hungry, then we may not even appreciate a food which we really love. In other words, to strengthen his devotees' mood of dependence on him and longing for him, the Lord arranges for his devotees to go through some suffering. And when he appears in order to deliver them, their gratitude and transcendental pleasure are boundless. So this is the reason why the tribulations are given to the pure devotees. But if you see, even for a sadhaka, sometimes Krishna puts us in distress, gives some tests, and then we ourselves can feel that, okay, now I am in complete distress, I don't have any other shelter, I tried this and that, nothing works, let me take shelter of Krishna. And then we do that in different ways. Someone may chant with the beat, someone may sing a kirtan or read Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, or hear a lecture or talk to some other devotee about Krishna's pastimes, different ways. Or have some prasadam, that also helps sometimes. So then we feel a better connection with Krishna than when we are trying to connect when we don't have much distress. So we also feel that difference, that intensity of connection gives us a little more ecstasy than before. Of course, the ecstasy, level of ecstasy is not as high as the pure devotees, but in our level also. So in that way, this is all Krishna's mercy. So in this verse, Mother Kunti is praying Akinchana Vittaya. So the property of one who is materially impoverished. So that is when, again, the materially impoverished has different meanings. Someone has a lot of material wealth, but completely detached from the material wealth, is also materially impoverished. And someone doesn't have any material wealth, so no need to worry about getting attached. So if somebody is attached to material wealth, then Krishna takes away wealth, which is a great mercy. Now I'll go to Srila Prabhupada's lives. He is a pure devotee. He doesn't have any attachment to material stuffs, but he is playing a role to teach us by example. So while he was contemplating about how to serve his spiritual master, to fulfill his mission of preaching in the Western world. That was the main instruction he got from Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. So he wrote in his, now as we know, during his life, he had a business to maintain his family, and then people cheated him within his business also. He lost all his possessions to do his business, all money, and then he became kind of materially impoverished in that sense, even though he did not have any material attachment even before. So he wrote a poem, Vrindavana Bhajana. The first two stanzas are in connection with this. So he wrote like this, it's in English, the translation. I am sitting alone in Vrindavana Dhama. In this mood, I am getting many realizations. I have my wife, sons, daughters, grandsons, everything, but I have no money, so they are a fruitless glory. Krishna has shown me the naked form of material nature. By his strength, it has all become tasteless to me today. Yasyaham anugrinhami harishye tadhanam shanai. I gradually take away all the wealth of those upon whom I am merciful. So Prabhupada is quoting this verse in his poem also. And he continues, how was I able to understand this mercy of the all merciful? Everyone has abandoned me, seeing me penniless, wife, relatives, friends, brothers, everyone. This is misery, but it gives me a laugh. I sit alone and laugh. In this Maya Samsara, whom do I really love? Where have my loving father and mother gone now? And where are all my elders who are my own folk? So he himself is showing us by example the realization. Even though we have all these connections in this material world, they are not our true shelter. They cannot help ultimately. Only Krishna is the ultimate shelter. And if we are able to connect with everything else, our relatives, friends, possessions, in connection to Krishna, then that is a success. Mother Kunti Devi also prays to Krishna. Please cut my attachment, material attachment to my relatives and friend, sons, etc. But the point is, connection is still there in a spiritual sense. They are all parts and parcels of Krishna, etc. So Prabhupada later told he lost everything, but that was complete gain for him. And he also jokingly was telling, I had only 40 rupees when I was coming to America for trying to fulfill his guru's instruction. And Krishna gave him 40 crores of rupees and much more. He was telling that in a lecture. As we know, he got a lot of wealth, but he utilized everything in service to Krishna, building temple and printing books, etc. And then that way engaging the whole world in some sense. Of course, he engaged his disciples and followers directly, but he engaged the whole world by his instructions through his books and lectures. And he's continuing that service, even though he's no more with us physically, but he's still serving this material world, this planet also through his books and words. So in the Prabhupada Leelamrita, there is a sentence, while Prabhupada lost everything before he came to United States, long before. So this sentence was interesting. It seemed that his endeavors for spiritual things were always successful, whereas his business efforts were consistently failing. So that was the realization even he also had. So again, it's nice to connect to Prabhupada's story itself to know how to respond to Krishna's reciprocations. If Krishna is giving us a lot of material wealth, he showed us how to reciprocate by utilizing that in Krishna's service. At the same time, if Krishna is taking us everything or taking us something to which we are attached, how do we reciprocate to that? Because we might feel a lot of distress that time. So are we going to slow down our spiritual connections or spiritual practices, or are we going to intensify our connection to Krishna? So Prabhupada showed us how to reciprocate to Krishna in different occasions. Now, in this today's verse, the purport, Prabhupada mentions, because the Lord is the property of the devotees, and the devotees are the property of the Lord, reciprocally, mutually. So, Lord allows us to, uh, 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 not enjoy, but to connect to Him in this way. So, He becomes the property of the devotee. So the devotees are certainly transcendental to the modes of material nature. That is the reason why He is allowing Himself to become the property of the devotee. If the devotee is still attached to the material things, he will not allow himself. We have this famous pastime from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Vasudeva Datta was requesting Lord Chaitanya, please allow me to take over all the sinful reactions of all the people in this, all the entities, living entities in the universe, and then please deliver all of them. I will eternally go to hell and suffer for all their sinful reactions. So then Mahaprabhu responds to Vasudeva Datta, mentioning, you have purchased me, I am your property. Of course, you don't need to suffer their sinful reaction, but since you told me, I will do that. So that is the kind of connection between Lord and pure devotees. So we can see a verse from Bhagavatam where Ambarish Maharaj was harassed by Durvasa Muni, and then Durvasa Muni runs to different places, Lord Shiva, Brahma, or Brahma, Lord Shiva, then at last goes to Vishnu, and Vishnu instructs Durvasa Muni this verse, Aham Bhakta Paradhino Hyaswatantra Iha Iva Dvija Sadhu Virgrasta Hridayo Bhaktair Bhakta Jana Priya. I am completely under the control of my devotees. Indeed, I am not at all independent because my devotees are completely devoid of material desires. So that is the reason. Because my devotees are completely devoid of material desires, I sit only within the cores of their hearts. What to speak of my devotee? Even those who are devotees of my devotee are very dear to me. So Akinchana Vittaya, that materially impoverished in that sense also, completely devoid of material desires. So whether I take away their material stuff or give, they don't have any, they don't feel any distress, or they don't have any different opinion about Krishna. We have another example of Sudama Brahman. He chose to become so poor. That's what Krishna told later. Why Krishna is making him struggle like this materially, but that is what his desire. I don't want any material stuff. That way I'm completely attached to Krishna. But later, due to his wife's request, he meets Krishna, but he did not ask for material stuff again. But knowing his wife's desire, Krishna provides him a lot of material opulence. But still his connection to Krishna did not change. He did not move towards material stuff. He was still lying on the floor, even though he had a lot of material opulence, nice bed, etc. So that is the connection of Krishna. Krishna and the pure devotees. Now I will end with this nice bhajan by Narottam Das Thakur, Hari Hari Vipale, and Srila Prabhupada had a lot of affection towards this bhajan. So he wrote a purport about this bhajan, and the last 4 lines, it goes like this: Ha ha Prabhu Nanda Suta Vrishabhanu Suta Juta Koruna Koro E Baro Narottama Dasa Koi Nate Liho Ranga Pai Toma Bine Ke Ache Amara. So in the purport of this, the last few lines, about these 4 lines, Prabhupada writes, my dear Lord Krishna, you are son of King Nanda, and your consort Radharani is the daughter of King Vrishabhanu. So you are together here standing. Now I am surrendering unto you. Please do not kick me away or push me away with your lotus feet, because I have no other shelter. I am just taking shelter unto your lotus feet without having any other means. So please accept me and deliver me. So this is how Narottam Das Thakur prays, and Prabhupada also was following in the same footstep in his life also, even though he was taking shelter of Krishna every moment to teach us lessons. Different times he expressed these explicitly also, and we know that how he was taking shelter of Krishna. As soon as he landed in America, he was telling I did not know whether to take right or left, where to go. And oh Krishna, why did you bring me here? Please, use me in your service. Make me and dance. Please, make me dance as your puppet, etc. So he was explicitly showing at various occasions also how to take shelter of Krishna, and Krishna is the only shelter, and Krishna is even the property of those who are completely taking shelter of Krishna. Of course, our intention is not to make Krishna our property, but Krishna is always our loving master, and we are always his loving servant. That is our eternal position. But the conditioned souls like us might have forgotten that, and now we are, by the mercy of this devotional practice, we are trying to revive our connection with Krishna as a tiny, insignificant servant. But from Krishna's point of view, even though we are tiny and insignificant, he gives us his full love. So that is his position. So we have everything up there. We just need to turn our heart towards him. So Mother Kunti Devi is, she is also peer devotee, but she is teaching us with this particular realization through this verse. And as mentioned in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives other glorifications of Krishna. He doesn't have any material attachment. Nivritta Guna Vrittaye. He is Atma Ramaya, self-satisfied. He is Shanta, gentle, and he is the master of the monists, impersonalists. But we are not going to those paths anyway. He is master of everyone. But our endeavor is to strive towards this end where we reduce or minimize our material attachment, at least while we are practicing bhakti, and then by the mercy of Krishna, by the mercy of holy name, by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, we can get rid of our material attachment completely. This is the power of the process. It's not our strength, but by the strength of the process and Krishna and Mahaprabhu, we can completely get purified, and then we can feel the complete connection with Krishna. So I will stop here and see if we have any realizations to share, or reflections or corrections.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. This is
Hare
Jen.
Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you for your wonderful class.
Thank you.
I hope and pray that you and your wonderful family are doing well and staying safe.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you so much for your wishes.
Can you compare and contrast? I was looking at this verse yesterday and trying to contrast it with the one that Queen Kunti spoke just prior to this one verse.
I can Janagocharam, right?
Yes. So how is this verse, how is it flowing into, with how is it distinguished from the prior verse? I was trying to think about that, and I was finding that a little bit unclear. So if you can enlighten us.
Of at least my understanding is the previous verse, Mother Kunti is praying, your lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted, because they're trying to enjoy the material stuff, but at some point everyone will realize that yes, with the material stuff I cannot enjoy, I cannot feel happy, and they can easily approach lordship, not some people who are still trying to enjoy the material stuff. So there is one nice for the sincere feeling. So Mother Kunti Devi is focusing on that. Unless one has a sincere feeling, they cannot approach Lordship in a proper mood of devotion. And to have a sincere feeling, these material stuff could be an obstacle. So that is what I understand from the previous verse. And in this verse, Akinchana, that was Akinchana Gocharam, this is Akinchana Vittaya, which is unto the property of the materially impoverished. So someone who already went through that cycle of birth and death and trying, and finally understood that yes, Krishna is the only shelter, and approaching Krishna sincerely, and they become the property of the, Krishna allows them to be a property, their property. So it is a sequence. That is what I understood from the previous verse to this verse. Is that correct, or do you have a better understanding?
Sorry, I'm trying to.
Or did I confuse what I meant?
No, I'm. Can you hear me?
Yes, very clear.
Okay. The control had vanished. No, I think that was very, very nice. I don't have a better understanding. I think you
Yes,
used
I
lots of-
never thought about this still you asked, but this was my little minor understanding about that.
No, it's very nice, and your examples that you used are wonderful. With the Goswamis, Srila Prabhupada, Ambrish Maharaj, Draupadi, so many wonderful examples, etc. I I remember. So no, I think your explanation is nice and sweet. I remember a story about Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was being interviewed by a reporter, and the devotee said that there was apparently some sense of envy or negativity, I guess, where the devotees had purchased a very nice vehicle. The devotees in 70s were just amazing how with so little they did so much. So they had somehow to purchase a Rolls Royce.
Mm.
You remember this past time?
Yeah, it's like you can tell.
Okay. So they purchased a Rolls Royce, and and the reporter saw that wait a minute, you're trying to live a life of a spiritualist, and you have a Rolls Royce. So she obviously didn't understand the mood of a disciple. And Srila Prabhupada said to her, are you under the impression that to be spiritually advanced, one has to be materially impoverished? And you tried to point out to her that that's not necessarily the case. It's what you do with what you have that counts,
Right.
not what you have.
Yeah.
So I remembered that when I was just contemplating this impoverished. We know about the extremes, and it's nice to see how Srila Prabhupada was able to use everything for Krishna service, yet be unattached. I remember the past time when a devotee gave Srila Prabhupada a very fancy watch, a Rolex, right?
Yeah.
And then Srila Prabhupada said, "Oh, I put it on," and said, "Oh, thank you very much. This is very nice." And then some other devotee comes with a inexpensive other watch, like I think at that time it was a Timex or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and Srila Prabhupada took off the Rolex and gave it to some other devotee and put on the, oh, this is very nice.
Yeah.
So unattached, to the material circumstance. It's nice to see that in the examples of devotees because they have that Brahm Dashma Nivartate,
Right.
Spiritual life is about an experience of spiritual happiness. And that can sustain one in spite of,
Right.
challenges. If Srila Prabhupada says, if we are just negating this and that, like he says this in his commentary to the Bhajahure Mana.
Yeah.
So Govinda Das says, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. He said, then somebody will say, what is your positive suggestion? So the positive suggestion has to be much greater, than the negative suggestion. Otherwise, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, I think the wonderful nature of these verses is it's giving a very positive suggestion, which is we can be, we can have Krishna in our lives in a very wonderful manner, and that will make everything else nice. So thank you for your wonderful class and realizations.
Thank you for that nice point. I remember Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj also used that luxurious car to show that he's not attached and the purpose is to serve Krishna.
Yes.
And Pundarika Vidya Nidhi also was exhibiting similar opulence, but in service to Krishna. Yes, thank you for bringing that very nice point.
Yeah, I think that something that is important for us is to experience that spirit, since Krishna is Atmarama, we also have to feel pleasure with the presence of Krishna within us and outside us. Otherwise it's all artificial, We have to be happy in Krishna consciousness.
Right.
Thank you very much. Other devotees probably want to say some things.
Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, this is Banamali Das here.
Hare
It's a
Krishna.
wonderful lecture. I have a question, Prabhu. Present days, what I see that as we're working from home or things, the demand from workplaces increase a lot, and somehow I
Yes.
feel we are, especially me, involved more on a ugra karma rather than the minimum requirement. So how do you really maintain that, or how do you really, because this is a demand, I can't deny the work what is expected, but in the same time I don't want to get into the ugra karma attitude. So what would you suggest?
Yeah, nice question. I will just share from my memory what His Holiness Ramapada Swami gave an similar question. I don't have high realizations. I'm also in your place. I know many people are telling, yeah, now they have to work more hard because working from home, they are pushing more work. That is true. But he was giving us, we have to maintain this is just the essence which I understood. I'm giving in my own way. We cannot avoid working because we have to maintain the family, ourselves and the family, etc. So all of a sudden, there is no other option than working. If there are options, of course, we can choose that. If there is another job which demands less work, if we get that, of course, we can choose that. But your question is something like not that option, at least in a short term. But how do we maintain that connection to Krishna and spiritual connection rather than getting entangled in the Ugra karma, right? So we can try to hear and chant in a mood of prayerful mood and praying to Krishna, mentioning, this is what I have to do, and please help me to still be attached to you, and then give me strength to understand that I'm doing this work also as a service to you, indirectly at least, and please protect me in whatever way if you so desire, of course, Krishna is the master, we cannot demand to protect, but if you so desire, please protect me from Maya, of course, and trying to change our consciousness in such a way that yes, work is meant to maintain the family, and that way I'm serving Krishna's devotees. My family is Krishna's devotees, and I'm serving them. For that purpose, I'm spending more time. The salary which I'm getting is given by Krishna only, not directly by the boss or the company, but it's coming through Krishna, and I'm trying to utilize that money also in service to Krishna, even by maintaining the family and other things. And personally, I think about other devotees, especially disciples of Prabhupada. That time, some of them, Jayananda Prabhu, he was working hard to earn money. We know that just by driving car and other things, which is who knows whom he is carrying in his taxi from place A to B. That person may not be going from place A to B for doing some nice thing. He may be going to do Ugra Karma. And then as a driver, Jayananda Prabhu, one may debate that, yeah, he's in some sense helping someone from going to A to B, and he can get that karma also, etc., etc. But of course, he was not thinking about that. He was completely dedicated to Srila Prabhupada and gave all the money he got from that work to the temple, and then trying to serve also within that. Of course, I'm not at that level, but those inspirations will help me to focus on my work, and I'm losing a lot of time towards spirituality in that way. And but I chose to do that because I chose this body. It is my desire, and then I chose to get married. I chose to have child. Now I cannot escape from that. So it is not because of Krishna I have to struggle to work, but it's my own past karma only. So that part is there. But at the same time, I pray to Krishna to protect me and give me enough remembrance of him through different mechanisms, little time to hear and chant and things like that. At least one thing, one difference I feel is working from home versus on campus is we don't have face-to-face connection with materialistic people. So at least I'm saved from that. So that is Krishna's mercy. So we can probably gain strength from that area and then use it for the other area where I still have to spend more time to Krishna. But ultimately, I'm sure you are working to maintain your family. You are doing a lot of service to the devotees, even while offline. So I'm sure Krishna is taking care of you. These are some of my thoughts.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna. If someone else has other thoughts, I'm sure most of us are working people and working long hours. Also, some of us will have better realizations.
When I heard that question, Mali Prabhu, I was thinking of the Goswamis. That's a nice question, because the Goswamis always had the similar question when they approached Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I don't know. Like, I thought of the specific example of Raghunath Das Goswami, where in Chaitanya Charitamrita describes him in Antya Leela, chapter 6. You can read about this. That Raghunath Das, I just pulled it up. I find this very wonderful. So they say that Sri Sarup Damodar, who was assigned by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to oversee Raghunath Das Goswami's instruction. So Sarup Damodar Goswami approached Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and said, Raghunath Das has this to say at your lotus feet. This is Antya Leela, chapter 6, verse 232. That I do not know my duty or the goal of life. Therefore, please personally give me instruction from your transcendental mouth. Now, of course, Raghunath Das Goswami was a sannyasi. So in one way, this could be as instruction for sannyasi, but it's for everyone. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says to Raghunath Das Goswami in verse 236 to 37 that do not talk like people in general or hear what they have to say. You should not eat very palatable food, nor should you dress very nicely. Do not expect honor, but offer respect to others. And this is the part I really like, Vanmali Prabhu. Always chant the holy name of Lord Krishna and within your mind render service to Radha Krishna in Vrindavan. After instructing, and then on Antya Lila, chapter 6, verse 239, Mahaprabhu says to Raghunath Das Goswami, gives him one final instruction. One who thinks himself lower than the grass, who is more tolerant than a tree, who does not expect honor, but is always prepared to give respect to others, can very easily always chant the holy name of the Lord. So, and then subsequently it goes on to demonstrate how one who pleases devotees, then one's heart becomes like a fertile ground for the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because it talks about Raghunath Das Goswami and how he served the devotees so nicely. But I think in this day of a lot of offline commitments, etc., one can follow the instruction of Mahaprabhu that always chant the holy name of Lord Krishna, and within your mind render service to Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. If nothing else, you can take, the fruits of your prescribed duty, and offer that back to Krishna. So instead of karma, becomes liberation. So I think you're doing that nicely, in spite of all the challenges of household life, material life, etc. And that's a nice example for a lot of people. So anyways, that was my thought. Others may want to say. So thank you. So that's Antya Lila chapter 6, starting with verse 230. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything to ask? Prema Vardhana Prabhu, he's 3 hours ahead of us, so I'm sure he has other commitments. So we want to honor his time. And then if not, today's Sunday feast class will be